I think everything happens in time. You know, there's a time for everything. There's a time to be in a group, and there's a time to be solo. At least there was for me. If I had it my way, I would have been in the group forever. You know, I enjoyed the group atmosphere. I thought, you know, it's so good to have two guys on stage backing you up. But the interesting thing about entertainment is that when you're struggling, everybody goes in with the same goals. You know, but somewhere along the success area, you start to look at everyone around you and go, wait a minute, where are you going? Where are you headed? Because I'm going this way. Wait, what happened? I thought we were all on the, you know, and sometimes success can do that. Sometimes it really illuminates, you know, creative differences, spiritual differences, you know, emotional differences. And I, you know, just like a young person would think that, you know, the friends that my fifth grade friends are going to be my friends forever, you know, throughout high school, and it's not that they cease being your friends, but sometimes you just mature to a place and some people get there faster, some people don't, you know, and you know, hopefully, ultimately, everyone catches up. But, you know, it's really interesting because I didn't actually make a decision to be solo. It really just happened. I promise you that. It's hard to explain, but, you know, I had intended to be in the group forever until I found myself in circumstances where I felt the inner desire to express myself freely and openly without any constraint, you know, without anybody saying, hey, you can't say that. That's not fly. You can't say that. People won't, you know what I mean? So, you know, the only way I could have done that was in doing a solo release. Well, the good part about it is I think that God, you know, surrounded me with the right team, you know, with the team that I needed to help me exercise all of my ideas, you know. It's like, you know, you need that. You need that army. You need that force. You know what I mean? No man is an island, you know. So I refused to take all the praise, you know, for that because they were talented musicians, you know. They were talented engineers. They were talented production assistants who really, you know, were there. And if I had an idea, I was able to express it and, you know, made them stay and work diligently till it was expressed. And, you know, that I appreciate. I appreciate the fact that if there's a will, there's a way. You know, Miseducation, you know, wow. Every day it means something more to me, actually. People automatically thought, you know, oh my, she must not have done, you know, maybe their teachers didn't teach anything, but that wasn't it. The meaning behind it was really sort of a catch in me learning that, you know, when I thought I was my most wise, I was really not wise at all. And then my humility, you know, and in those places that most people wouldn't expect a lesson to come from, that's where I learned so much. And, you know, and so I termed the phrase miseducation, you know, not because it was a miseducation per se, but just because it was sort of contrary to what the world says is education, you know. It was this education that came from life and experience, you know, and not necessarily all academic, but related to living. I'd gone through a lot, you know, a huge emotional and spiritual battle prior to the creation of that album. And the funny thing is that while I was going in the battle, I couldn't see my hand despite my face. I mean, I really couldn't see anything because I was so emotionally entangled in everything that I'd gone through. But it was like once I was delivered from that situation, you know, and once I got the perspective, was able to look back at heartache and look back at pain and disappointment, for some reason, it all was so clear. You know, it was just like you know, the picture started to form itself. The songs started to create themselves. I was able to look back and be a narrator of my own situation. But the interesting thing was that it couldn't happen while I was in the middle of the confusion. You know, it was about a young woman, you know, in the music industry, you know, and the pitfalls, the snares, the traps, and they don't stop. They keep coming. You know, they don't stop. I think that because I grew up in such a loving family structure, I thought that everybody did. And therefore, I thought that everybody reaped the benefit of that love. And pretty naive way to think. And so I learned very important lessons about people and their voids. And how when you have voids, you know, like a black hole just sucks, you know, and consumes everything into it, you know. And I met a lot of those people. You know, here I was, this ship. I just want to love, you know, and I met a lot of black holes, a lot of people with a lot of deep, deep, painful voids, and, you know, who found it easy to take advantage and to manipulate and to deceive someone with me who just, you know, all I want to do is love. I had to learn from those things, painfully, you know, but even now I thank God for correction. You know, I even thank Him for hardship because it shows me exactly where I am, where I was, and where I need to be. So it was important. It was a very important record. Interestingly enough, you know, that record was all about what I feel, you know. And it's going to be interesting to see what the next record becomes, because that will probably be about what I think, you know, as opposed to what I feel, everything that I feel, you know. It'll be what I feel still, you know, but it's also going to be something conscious. You know, a lot of that was unconscious creation, unconscious creativity, because I was so overwhelmingly emotional. You know, it was just like I just had to write about this. Every time that God navigates my ship, there's nothing cerebral going on. There's very little, you know, there's very little thought. It's almost as if I have the directions. Every time I try to do it myself, I'm conjuring up my own concoction and trying. It's a little more difficult to do it that way because it takes a lot of thought, it takes a lot of energy. But it's like when I'm led, you know, it kind of really is just it's all there and it's clear. These are your orders, just go forth and carry them out. And so I was going to say, you know, that this album gets to be what I think, but I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what that will be? Because I think that what I've consciously decided to do is be patient and wait for those instructions again, as opposed to the instructions from the record company. You know, I can't, unfortunately, I can't fulfill their needs. You know, I can't, because it's devoid of all feeling, you know what I mean? I have to make sure that what I create, you know, I never want to condescend. There are a lot of people who condescend to the audience. You know, they just think, oh, they like anything, just throw a beat on it and put your voice on it. But if it doesn't move me, then I don't think it's worthy enough to put out there and move someone else, you know what I mean? Like it has to be something that is personally, you know, is something that I need personally. That's my barometer for whether or not it's good for the people. Not just anything, just, you know, just make a beat, it's hot, throw it out there. You know, that I can't use that barometer. That doesn't work with me. I personally don't feel the pressure. The pressure is out there. Yeah, but I don't feel it. I really, really don't. You know, it does exist. Everyone, you know, I see people, hey, when's that record company coming? You know, you can't leave us hanging like that. We need something else. Or the record company, or the window of opportunity is almost closed. But I just don't think that those rules apply to me. And not because of me, but I just think that it's something spiritual and something bigger. And I think that if you respond to the needs of the people, you know, that's timeless. There is not a window of opportunity for people's needs. My whole life at a certain point was studio and you know, studio, hotel, stage, studio, stage, hotel, studio, stage, you know, and I was expressing I was expressing everything from my past, everything that I had experienced prior to that studio stage time, and it was like, you know, you have to go back to the well, you know, in order to to give someone something to drink. I felt like a cistern, dried up, and like there was nothing more, and it was so beautiful because normalcy. I returned to a normal situation with my children running around, screaming, and it was wonderful. And I walked down the street and I went grocery shopping, and I loved it. Every minute of it I love. I find, even when it's raining, I just go outside, I look outside, and I'm just so blessed to see it and to experience it, because for such a long time I was just indoors. The whole concept of success to me is a little bit warped. Because what are you being successful at in your house trap? That's not successfully living. I don't buy into that whole concept of success, that I have this mountain with this moat around it, and then I get into my, my big car and, and drive to my destination and never see people. That's not my concept of success. My concept of successful living is escaping the matrix, as we talked about. It has very little to do with what people think success is. I actually feel successful right now, even though, I don't have an album out or a video or a song on the radio, because I'm trying to be obedient to his will. I'm trying to be, a loving and caring mother, a loving and caring wife to be, a loving and caring daughter, a loving and caring friend, a responsible person. And every day is another opportunity for me to be successful at that. The other stuff, I think it'll come. I think, I don't think, I know, there are certain gifts that each of us have. The gifts we don't have to worry about so much, because God gave them to us. It's the living, it's the life, it's the now. It's wisdom without understanding is, what is it? How do you're so wise, you're so intelligent, but how do you apply that to your life? Is your life in turmoil? I was born in East Orange. I lived in Newark for a brief time, moved to New York for a short period of time, and then moved to South Orange. And South Orange was, it was interesting because it was this very diverse, and I can't just say South Orange, I have to say the area surrounding South Orange, because Newark is the city, and then the Oranges are the suburbs, okay? And, I lived in this suburb where it was like, I'd say 50%, maybe 40% black, 60% Jewish. And I grew up with this very eclectic, just interesting exposure to all these different cultures. And of course, Manhattan is right there. So, just from the time I was very young, exposed to the Jewish community, the Asian community, the West Indian community, the Cuban community, the Latin community, just a myriad of cultures in this one area. My mother was a teacher, she was an educator, and, but even if she wasn't, I really think that I had a love, I don't know if it was necessarily for academics more than it just was for achieving, period. And if it was academics, if it was sports, if it was music, if it was dance, whatever it was, I was always driven to do a lot in whatever field or, whatever area I was focusing on at the moment. So I did well in school, but learned a lot from that too. Learned a lot from the school atmosphere, the school setting, but so much of my experiences came around school, not so much in the classroom, but what took place outside the classroom. A lot of those life lessons were attained outside, inside as well, but outside also. My parents had a love for music. They had a love for, there was so many records, so much music constantly being played. My mother played piano, my father sang, and it was just music, always surrounded in music. I remember one of my earliest memories was in a house in East Orange that we lived in where, either Sundays or Saturdays, maybe Saturdays, we would clean the house and my mother would play, Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life, the whole album. I just remember hearing Isn't She Lovely and, and Pretending to Iron, So from a very young age, there was a lot of music. When I was 9 years old or something around that age, I found a 45 record in the basement that belonged to my mother. And, I had one of those little record players that you carry in a little suitcase. So that was the only record that would fit on, in my personal record player. So I played it. And whatever the song was, it touched me, it moved me. And I realized that I wanted to find more of those little records. That's what I used to call them. Where are the little records? I want to find these little records. And, went into the basement and just like unearthed tons and tons of these records from my mother's, childhood and her youth. And so here I am, 8, 9 years old. Everybody else is listening to New Edition and whatever current, group is on the radio. And I'm listening to like Shep and the Limelights and Gladys Knight and the Pips and, and all of these older groups and really loving it and becoming, just doused myself in all this music and all this musical history. And they really were my teachers, my musical teachers. I didn't have, I wasn't, I didn't go to Juilliard or I wasn't classically trained, but by listening, I grew an appreciation for certain musical philosophies and ideas and concepts. I understood what drums and bass and, and all different types of instrumentation were just by virtue of my exposure to this music. I would fall asleep to it. We always talk about how, students who don't want to study, put your book under the pillow and sleep, but I literally fell asleep with the music, and I think there's so much of that, I soaked up, even in my dreams. What's Going On, Marvin Gaye, I just remember like playing the first side over and over again. There was one of those old record players. After I moved up from the little suitcase record player, there was a bigger record player that my grandmother had given to me, and it was one of those old arms that, when you pressed repeat, it turned and went down. And I used to play my records aloud until one night my mother was like, "This is too loud, I'm not having it." And so I put on headphones, but in order for me to listen to the records, the headphones didn't stretch all the way to my bed from the record player. So I had to sleep on the floor in order to hear the records. And that's where I slept until college. I slept on the floor right next to the record player until I was probably 19 years old, really. I mean, I just started sleeping in the bed again because my records, that was their space, the bed. And I just stayed on the floor listening to this music from, morning to night. Actually, to be very honest with you, I don't listen to a lot of music at all anymore at all. I think that's very bizarre too, because it was such a comfort zone for me. But I don't know if I had my fill, but I don't listen to a lot of music anymore because I'm creating it now. Everything takes place in a season. There was a season where that's all I did was listen. And now I'm just in a place where I don't listen, I create. And if I do listen, there are specific things that I listen to, and for specific reasons. I'm no longer listening for the, I rarely, I don't want to say I no longer, but I rarely listen for the sheer pleasure. I'm listening for the tool. I'm listening for the instrument. I'm listening for the art. I'm listening for, boy, that was crazy what they just did. Boy, that changed, you know what I mean? It's very weird. I think that part of that is why I'm making music now, is to make it for other people to listen to for pleasure, and hopefully later on, maybe they'll listen to me and they go, "That bass line, boy, did you hear the way those drums interacted with that, or that change?" You know what I mean? So, I think we all have a certain corner to hold. We, earlier this year, Curtis Mayfield passed away, and there was a memorial, and they asked me to sing at the memorial. And I was realizing that what Curtis represented in the 60s and 70s, it's like there's a season, and it's not really about the messenger per se, it's more about the message and how he had a time where he had to hold it because other people were singing love songs and other things, he had a very political, spiritual message. And even though it was entertaining and you enjoyed it and you could dance to it, there was this very heavy value. And as I listened to his eulogy and as I listened to the music, music that I grew up listening to, it just dawned on me that our generation is no different. Someone has to hold it. When everyone else is being indulgent and doing whatever they want to do, someone has to be responsible so that music reaches and touches, a specific chord. And that may not be me. I may lose my mind tomorrow, but it's got to be somebody. I had a very close-knit, very, very tight family. My grandmother had 13 kids, so we had a lot of family and like 50, 60 grandchildren, and we all lived in Jersey, relatively in the same area. So every time there was something, my entire family was there, and I just knew that everybody's family was like that, and we were always there for each other. There was a lot of love. My grandmother was such a matriarch that, it just, through her children and then their children, this love, this family structure, this close-knit family structure was implanted in all of us. And it really helped to give me the confidence to know that you have, family to go back to is a help. And it doesn't always happen biologically. Sometimes, God gives you family in other forms. But I was very blessed to have a very strong biological family, My brother's so funny. Every day, I just remember a lot of the things that we did growing up. As a matter of fact, he was my first group. We were a music group together. We were the first group. We had a song called Let's Be Friends, and he played the acoustic, and I sang, and it's a pretty bad song, but, but those early seeds are planted, they were planted, definitely. I would get my books via my mother's reading. I would sit there, she would read certain books, and I would go, now tell me about it, and I'm sorry that I didn't pick them up myself. I didn't do that until a little bit later. I think as a child I was into, the Beverly Quimby type, Ramona Quimby, Beverly Cleary, yes. Ramona Quimby, age 8, and things like that. But, I was never an extensive reader until late. I tried, not to have a day pass where I don't read something from the Bible, for example. It's like my sustenance to me. If the entire week is a battlefield, it's like reading that is sort of like that parachute with the box of, reserves that comes, in the middle of the war, and you have food and water and a toothbrush and toilet paper, and you're just like, thank you, So my reading, is definitely, I was very active. I was always all over the place trying to do a million things, just into this activity. You asked me when I was 14 what I wanted to be. Activist first. It's my occupation. I am an activist. Yeah, after activist, it was, I need to be a doctor, and then I'm going to minor in law, and this double major, and until I got into college, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, wait, I haven't even picked a major yet, and this is responsibility, and perhaps I should focus, and every day is a lesson in focus for me, and not buying into sort of the world's concept of what you have to be. I'm really try every day to be individual, and not just in, my style or my look or my music, but in my approach to life. Even, I don't want to be religious. I want to be spiritual. Anybody can be religious. Some people jog religiously. You don't want to be that. You want to be spiritual. You want to have a relationship with God as opposed to doing what everyone else does. And it just, it's about having that unique approach and finding out what works for you. And if what works for you may not work for someone else, But that's exciting. When they could have easily said no, or we have no interest, we're not going to drive you to this audition. No, we're not going to allow you guys to practice and play the music in the living room. Or, when they could have easily done that, they didn't. And just very, very meaningful. My parents, really took a heavy, very serious interest in my creativity from the time I was very young, and not for the sake of, they didn't know what would come of it, just because I enjoyed it, and to me that's a reflection of love, when someone can see you enjoying yourself and want to participate or want to encourage or want to help you to do something that you enjoy. It wasn't about making her a star. It was just, hey, she likes to do this, let's support it. Actually, the music came before the acting, but while I was doing music, I found myself meeting people who acted, and they exposed me to that field, and I was kind of like, hey, all right, I'll try it. always thinking, well, music is my first love. And I just stumbled. I mean, when I tell you I stumbled upon all this, actually I didn't stumble because there are no accidents, but I did not, I didn't have that intense ambition to be a musician or an actress. I just enjoyed it, and if there was an opportunity, hey, I'll go. And by enjoying it, because I loved it, it enabled me to get better at what I was doing, because there was a love behind it. It wasn't like, I've got to do this, there wasn't just, naked ambition. I really enjoyed what I was doing. And all the while that I enjoyed it, I was happy doing it. I was content doing it, whether it was for 3 squirrels in the park or, for 3 acorns as compensation. I mean, it didn't matter to me. And because we loved it so much, I think that was a reflection, to others. I think that they saw that, that to me, penetrated the minds and the hearts of people more than, hey, look how well we can play. It was kind of, there was something else that was communicated, by the music and by the artistry. And that created opportunity, definitely. But I don't think that's sophisticated. I think that is just some straight, ghetto singing into the hairbrush in the mirror. There was nothing sophisticated about it at all. It was really, it was where I grew up. Everyone was like that. You know what I mean? Everyone, it's like, especially in my family, there was not an abundance of wealth, but there was an abundance of love. So there was always humor, and there was joy, and there was comfort, and there was this environment just to have a good time. And in having a good time, sometimes, you stumble upon a talent. Wow, I like to sing. I'm going to sing this song. Hey, you can sing. Did you know that, girl? I can. And let me take this a little more seriously. But, it was just something that we all did. It really was the performance part of humanity. I think I was just acting out on my humanity, on this gift that God gave me, and just being a kid, really being a kid. And if I became sophisticated while I was doing that, if that took place, then, I didn't know about it, because I certainly wasn't trying to. I just tried to sing that song just like Whitney Houston. You know what I mean? That's really was the goal at that point. But, if you love something, man, if you love something, and if you're committed and diligent, the things that happen, I mean, there's some people who are blessed with gifts, but then there are certain people who can work toward, even with the gift that I have now, I mean, I've leaned on God for so long. Hey, God, you just gave me this gift, and I'm just going to go out there and sing. But it's only now that I'm realizing how much larger and how expansive my gift becomes when I actually pay attention to it and try to practice and try to perfect it. I've always, I'm not going to warm up. I'm just going to go in the studio and sing this song, and inspiration will take me. And yes, that's true. We are inspired to do things, and definitely. But, now I'm understanding that, like in the Bible, for example, when it talked about David, it always said that David was a skillful player. He played cunningly, so that took practice. And I'm not afraid of that anymore. That's exciting to me. Boy, that's an interesting question. My mother's right there, but I didn't know what my father did for the first 15 years of my life. Everybody who asked me, I would say, just works with computers or something. I don't know, because he was a consultant. Consulting is such a vague term, when you consult. But my father was a computer consultant, and only now that I do some consulting sometimes, so I understand exactly what consulting means. But my father was brilliant, and I tell you, because he was just exposed to so much culture, and he exposed us to so much culture. I remember being like, 7 years old, wanting to go to International House of Pancakes on Saturday, and my father takes us to dim sum, which is like a Chinese brunch or Chinese breakfast, and me being like, what is, but really learning and enjoying and appreciating culture, and not just that wasn't just my own from a very young age. They, like everyone else, have just been carried away. No, I'm only kidding. They've lost it completely. My parents are very humble, very real. My mother's always very honest with me, and I'm thankful for that, because I need that. You know, you need someone who just, you know, can penetrate the facade and say, I knew you win, and let's go back there right now. So definitely, they've definitely handled it well. Probably was about 13. I guess professionally would be, I guess, the first time I entered into a studio or, you know, film and maybe television, perform for money. It was probably 13, 14 years old, something like that. You know, once again, you know, all these opportunities were just presented. You know, I did not go out and pursue them. And, you know, I was always surprised. I was always very surprised, you know, at how people received what I did. I was always like, really? I said those lines okay? You know? Because, but I think I just had there was a certain amount of seriousness from a child. I understood that, I think that my work ethic, I think the work ethic that was established in my family was also something very important. You know, you know, if you plant the seed, if you sow sparingly, you'll reap sparingly. If you sow in abundance, you'll reap in abundance. So that was, you know, always sort of in us from very young. So even the things that I loved, I tried to, you know, put a couple seeds in the, you know, a bunch of seeds in the ground and see what sprung up. And sometimes it was acting and sometimes it was music. But whatever it was, I continued to plant. She gave me a piece of bread, which was, you know, love and encouragement. You know, the correction was the meat, the substance. And then she would sandwich that with another piece of bread, which was, you know, love and encouragement. So, you know, that was very important in shaping and molding our morality, you know, our understanding of ourselves, you know, making sure that we didn't think we were better than or less than anyone, you know, feeling no more worthy or no less worthy, you know, than anyone else. And all that was really, really crucial and prepared me for where I am now. You know, that is very important preparation. Well, the first Grammy I won was with the Fugees. Oh boy, I'm not good at these answers because, you know, I don't know the response for that one. I guess I was honored, you know what I mean? But the honor to me has less to do with the award. You know what I'm saying? To me, that translates in the relationship that I have with the audience, and if my music is helpful to them. You know, that's the award. You know, and that, you know, that, you know, if I never won a Grammy, you know, I would be satisfied if in fact I could help people, because it's really, really not about that. And I don't say that because it sounds like something cool to say. I mean, really, you know, if those Norris people knew how we treat, no one kidding. My mother has that stuff, all the awards and stuff, because, you know, if I walked downstairs every day and I saw all my achievements, it would be so easy to become complacent. Oh, I've got all of these, and look at those. I don't need to do anything else. But life is continued work. It's constant learning. The whole concept of retirement, I don't even buy into. You know, we should constantly be working, maybe not physically working, but we could be spiritually, emotionally working toward bettering ourselves and bettering the lives of others around us. So I get really afraid of those little comfort, you know, those things that make us feel like, you know, we did something great. Because I've done nothing. I've done nothing. And I mean that sincerely. There's a time for rest, you know, but, you know, I don't believe in getting comfortable just because everyone says you've arrived. You know, that's not what it's all about. Once you compromise yourself in one way, you compromise yourself in another way. And you've just opened the door to, you know, compromise, mediocrity, settling. And I don't mean, when I say mediocrity, I don't mean I mean that we should constantly be aspiring, to reach higher and higher and higher. We should never be comfortable where we are. We should always be aspiring to know more and to better ourselves and to improve ourselves, to improve ourselves. Because that's how we improve the world around us, by working within us. You improve yourself, light up the corner that you live on. You may not touch a gazillion lives, but you can light up your own space, light up your home. As long as I remember that the glory is His and not my own. When I confuse that, I get in trouble. But when I remember the proper hierarchy, because see, we have it all wrong. We think that we glorify ourselves and that the object is to glorify God first. And in doing that, you become glorified. You get glorified. There are certain times when, of late especially, that God has shown me, just be quiet. Because I started to feel like I always had to expound, and say something profound. And just stop thinking. And if I could tell you that I was totally unprepared, I can't prepare anything because I just drop it. Because it's just too cerebral. And what I'm feeling in here, just all this ball of energy inside, and when, it just doesn't work, with my intellectual mind. The two are like, so one has to take control. Either I suppress that spirit, or I suppress my brain. And it usually works out the best when I, suppress and not kill, not destroy, but just suppress. Allow my spirit, to navigate the rest of my, devices, instead of allowing those things to have control over my spirit. Because, I have a considerable amount of confidence, but it's not in me. It's the work that God's doing in me that makes me confident. I don't have an American dream. I have a dream, because my dream relates to the entire world. And to be honest with you, that is that the entire world, have salvation. That the entire world have joy. That the entire world know God and have peace and have His rest and His happiness. For me to limit that and say that that's an American dream, that would be far too limiting. That's a dream for this entire world. That we really all have the presence of God in our lives, because I can't give anyone anything more. God showed me I can sing songs about love. I can sing songs about me, and those people will enjoy those songs. But when they're desperately, desperately in need of help, what will my music do? How will it help them? Will it redeem them? Will it save them? Will it fight that battle for them? It's just a song.